for the Black Life and Culture Committee. On behalf of the committee, we would like to thank you for coming out this evening. Dr. Ben is a leading African scholar, historian, and cultural anthropologist. Dr. Ben was born in Ethiopia to the Beta Israel nation, which is a very Orthodox Hebrew community in Ethiopia. He is fluent in Spanish, Portuguese, Hebrew, Swahili, Italian, Gizi, and English, and has impressive academic credentials. He holds a master's degree and a PhD in cultural anthropology and a PhD in Moorish history. He also received a law degree from LaSalle University. Dr. Ben has been a visiting professor on African history and social cultural history at several universities, including Pace University, Columbia University, Teachers College, State University of New York, City University of New York, and the Africana Studies and Research Center of Cornell University. Dr. Ben has advised the government of Zanzibar in African history and related affairs. He has also written over 28 published books on Africa and its people, including Africa, Land, People, and Culture, Southern Lands, and Black Man of the Nilo and His Family. He has also written a 6-volume encyclopedia on Africa. Dr. Ben, in his capacity as an Egyptologist, is also involved in taking African peoples on tours to the Nile nations of Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ben. Do you feel comfortable with it being?
Good evening. I hope you would understand my accent, and if you do not, then you can always raise your hand and I will try to make the correction. But before, let me give you a few more items in the background area so that you can make yourself much better off for the lecture. I like very much to give in my background that I am the father of 12 biological children. I have 7 daughters and 4 sons. I lost my oldest daughter last year. And I have also 8 more children, adopted children, and I have 47 grandchildren and 14 great-grandchildren. And in all departments, I'm waiting for more. I want to say that even though I had a religious upbringing among my people, I personally am not religious. I'm not Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. I find religion to be a hindrance in my way, and because somebody always wants me to endorse his particular philosophy and one side or the other. And this way I can be objective and not have to follow one item or the other. Because when you speak of religion, nobody takes into consideration that before there was a God named Jehovah, and the Adam and Eve story, mankind almost everywhere was practicing some other religion than that. And the people who wrote the Torah, starting with Abraham himself, was nowhere wrong. Before the 13th dynasty, the Egyptians were in the 13th dynasty, and they could not have built a single pyramid because all the pyramids was built before the first Jew, Abraham, was born. And other such things, and the Christian religion didn't start till 1996 years ago. And of course, the Muslim religion started 622 years after that. And when you look at even the concept that Moses gave the world, the 10 Commandments, you could find those 10 Commandments plus 32 more in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. 3,000 years before the Ten Commandments. So you see, I had to remove myself from any tie to people's belief system. Do I believe anything? Sure, I believe a lot of things, but they are based upon some experience I may have had. I may be wrong in the belief, or I may be right, but I don't believe there's any such thing as an infallible belief. The mere fact that it's a belief is subject to all kind of problems. I want to speak to you tonight, therefore, in a manner that we can exchange, when the question and answer period comes, our free thought on anything that I've stated. If I do not know during my delivery, I will not say it. If I do not know during your questions, I will tell you I don't know. If you don't like the fact that I don't know, later for you. I will tell you that, and I probably would suggest that someone else who may know in this particular area. I'm thankful for your having invited me, because too many people don't invite me, at least after the first time. And I understood this is the second time that I've come to you, so you've got courage. All right, now we shall start. I'll present to you my lecture about African people, particularly in honor of the man who started this event when it was only 1 week out in the shortest month in the year, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I recall when he was fired for attempting to put a course in what was supposed to be a colored school, otherwise called Howard University. Mordecai Johnson was then the president, and Mordecai Johnson fired Dr. Woodson, and of course the black world protested, and then he was rehired. It's sad to find that 10 years ago, or a little better than that, Harvard was bragging it was the only school in the United States had a course on African history that everyone had to take entering the university. And they still got the one course that anyone have to take. So let me speak to you in this context. First of all, I wish you have a paper and pencil. To follow me, it is necessary to do some writing. Number one, where I'm going to speak about the African, I'm going to speak about there is no European in the world. I don't say that European isn't born, but there is none registered any place. Nobody know of them but they of themselves. In other words, until I reach to 1,000 before the common era, as you may say 1,000 before Christ, I don't use that reference, I use before the common era, which will mean the same thing. There wasn't a Greece yet, and there wasn't a Rome yet. Homer will be the first person who wrote anything that would give us any reference to what we could call Rome. That would be Homer's writing in about 833. And even Homer is speaking in the Odyssey about the gods of Greece. And he said what? The gods of Greece came from Ethiopia. Zeus, Apollo, and others. And that is Homer himself. You can, I'm sure you have that reference to that book in this library. I'm sure you, in this university, you must have hundreds of them. But I refer you back again to the Egyptian library, the Ethiopian library, and the Sudanese library, and remind you that there are African writings, a number of them. The last time I counted, we had 37 indigenous African languages that are written. So when you hear that the Africans never write and you making excuses, we didn't write, so please let me tell you, you're going to write in my class. and you're not going to tell me a darn thing. I demand writing. And you could write, you did write, and you must write. So let us start. I am starting my lecture 10,000 before the Common Era. That would be at least 7,000 years before Adam and Eve. Can you imagine I'm talking about African history before Adam and Eve? Because they didn't exist. I am going to speak about the stellar system. When we had the stellar calendar, the Africans were exacting every bit of their performance based upon the worship of the stars. We acted on them. They were the center of our universe. There are many archaeological studies and many archaeological sites that we have from the stellar system. However, we're going to revise that to 4100 BC, or before the Common Era. And that is the one in which we're going to have sufficient information right now. We have information in the museum in Cairo, the museum in New York City, the museum in Berlin, in Austria, in Paris, in Le Sorbonne, and everything with numerous. As a matter of fact, there are more artifacts in these museums than there are in Cairo. If we should remove these artifacts from European university, you would not be able to go to the museums any longer because there wouldn't be anything there for you to see. Because Europe didn't have any. And no one tried to tell us this. To the contrary, they try to make us feel that we have to have an education to be anything. In 4100 BC, when the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, I'm using Western terms, Egyptians, Ethiopians, Nubians, and so forth, and I'm going back against the way we travel. By the way, I listed it intentionally for you to feel comfortable. But Egypt is the last nation of Africa along the Nile. There are two bodies of the Nile flowing from south to north, not north to south, coming from Central East Africa, centered in Uganda, out of the Empire of Penwet, P-E-M-W-E-T. You have heard that called Punt in the Hebrew mess about some guy named Noah. The world go to an end. God become unable to handle people, and he had to kill them off and save one family. And he built a boat, and he put two of everything in it. You know that I'm lying, because if he put two these dinosaurs, tails, not the whole dinosaur, just the tail of a female and the tail of a male, the darn boat sinks. So we could ignore that story, but you can't if you've been caught in it. If you've been told that all the time and you believe it, then you believe anything. Like you believe Atlantis exists. You write about it constantly. How could you write of a thing you don't know where it is? All right, let's go on. But it's in 4100 at the worship of the sun that we're going to use the solar calendar. And that calendar basically is still today. It is in 4100, if you're using the African figures, the works of Manetho, that ancient Egypt started subsequent to Tanahisi, Tasseti, Aksum. I don't know if you know those names. Let me call them the way you know them. Sudan, Ethiopia, and a part of Sudan you call Meroe. And of course Egypt was then called Tammeri. Not, I repeat, the name of the earth. The ancient Egyptian priests called their land Tamari. They didn't call it the black dirt. Nobody called their land black dirt or call themselves black dirt. But go ahead and call it whatever you want. In that basis, it was then that the same people in Africa, if you can tell me other than the Africans who were there, I would like you to tell me now. I will stop for you to tell me who were in Africa when there were no one knew anybody about a European. There must have been Africans in Africa. At least when it was called Darkest Africa, we were still there and nobody else before their arrival. So I guess we were there. We worked and then we brought into, with revision, from the stellar period or the pre-dynastic period, we made many changes and we brought forth a major work. The Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night. It is called by Budge, the Englishman Sir Ernest E. Wallace Budge, called it the Egyptian Book of the Dead. In that section, in the race section, there's a part there he called the Osirian drama. It should be the drama of Asaru, but we'll accept it as written. It is in there that you will find the negative confession. This book had been revised a number of times before it was placed there in what Budge called the Book of the Dead. Amongst the Book of the Dead, there is the Book of Ra, the Book of Knowing the Gates, and many other books that made the moral principle upon which the people of the Nile live. Not Egypt. There was no barrier as the one that was set for Africa and elsewhere by the Berlin Conference of 1874 or 76. That type of boundaries did not exist in ancient Africa or anywhere else. People lived according to where their cattle fed or where the donkey went, and that was called by a name. I lived there in Egypt. It didn't mean a circumscribed area of land with police and all kind of marines and this at a different side of it. So I just wanted to be clear that you have in mind that I'm not speaking about the African countries that were designated as such at the Berlin Conference and subsequently the Brussels Conference in 1708. From then on, the people set up in ancient Egypt, I use the word that you know, set up 40 different principalities within the state. They were called nomes, N-O-M-E-S. A nome would be equivalent to a state. The state of Georgia, the state of Tennessee, the state and so forth. Egypt had 40 nomes. She would have 40 nomes from the first dynasty until the third dynasty. After the third dynasty, she would accumulate 2 more nomes. And she would have 42 nomes. Everything in Egypt was based upon these 42 nomes. Not only that, in each nome, there would be a trinity. I hope you understand that. A trinity. Each state, each nome will have a trinity. A father, a son, and a child. Sometimes, however, a nome only had 3 men, or as the case may be. These people were not necessarily gods or goddesses. It varied depending upon the nome. They built the homes they live in wood up to the third dynasty. The revolution is going to take place against Egypt with respect to the other states along the Blue and White Nile. Let's quickly find the Blue and White Nile. The Blue Nile comes out of Uganda, of Ethiopia. It comes out the Tisiti Mountain and into the Lake Tana, and then it flows southwest. The White Nile comes out of Uganda, which was part of the Buganda Kingdom, and part of Penwet, it flows down towards Tanahisi or Sudan. The White and Blue Nile meets in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. There they continue to flow further down north. And at Atbara in Sudan, they meet another body of water coming out of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian highlands, called the Atbara River in Atbara, Sudan. They meet there, and the last time any extra body of water met, from there on, that is called the Nile. Understand? The White and Blue Nile, repeat, meet at Khartoum. They join and continue their meet at Atbara with the Atbara River coming out the highlands of Ethiopia. From then, no other body of water meet, and that body flows from there into ancient Nubia, Tanubia, or Tanuba, into ancient Tameri, and then into the Great Sea. The Great Sea is today called the Mediterranean. So you understand when I say the Blue Nile, the White Nile, and just the Nile. There are three different bodies of water. All right. And under society, they continue to build as ordinary. Those people introduce a concept of writing by taking the papyrus plant, finding a way in which to mend it, because they had the writing and it was writing in stone. It was very cumbersome to carry around. But they developed a paper, papyrus, which they took the stem of the papyrus, they split it down the length, squeeze it and roll stone around it, put it in, like you would see the Scots people, they make their clothes in a cross pattern. Squeeze it out and left it for days, come back, and when they take this pressure off, it is ready to write, and you cannot lose it again. Don't care how much pressure upon it, you cannot lose it. And that was the writing equipment in which they used to communicate with each other. And this goes back, as I said, more than 4100 BC. That's how far back. I used Egypt because Egypt has more artifacts than the other states along the Nile. Now we are finding, however, much more artifacts in Sudan as well as in Ethiopia. Why? Because now the Sudanese government, a new Sudanese government, and the Ethiopian government, a new Ethiopian government, are taking complex attitude towards their own culture, and they are doing their own investigation. I am trying to do whatever I can in the area with them. So we can go from here. Something happened in the third dynasty. There is no other way to come but bringing this up in a slow manner. A man came along on the scene, and this man is going to make this area of the world lead the entire world. A man by the name of Imhotep. You call him Imhotep. Imhotep, with the observation of a building piece of material called a stone, is going to change the entire world. The world at that time, the world subsequent, and the world today is going to change by the action of Imhotep. He's going to change what the ancient pharaohs were put to rest in. They were put to rest in a wood building called a mastaba today. He decided that his pharaoh should not go away in a mastaba, that he needed something better than that, and he then took stone to copy the mastaba. Mastaba really is an Arabic word meaning a bench. And the reason it's called a bench is because so much more of the building is in the ground, and only about 3 to 4 feet is out on the top of the ground. So you can sit on the mastaba and your foot is on the ground, so they call it a bench. but it has nothing to do with a bench. It's just a statement. He then built a mastaba of stone. He didn't like it. It looked too ordinary. He put on another story. Didn't like it, and he kept on until he had 7 different smaller ones, like a cake, like a wedding cake. These 7 buildings, such 7 stone plaques, became the first stone building in the world. I want to remind you, there is no Abraham yet. Not a single Jew is in the world. Not a single Christian. Not a single Muslim is in the world. When I get there, I'll tell you, I ring the bell and tell you, okay, Muhammad is coming now, Jesus Christ and Pantius and Botius, and so you could get it, and then raise hell after that about you being the only right true religion. Now, Imhotep not only built that, but every pyramid must have a complex. It must have a walkway, a runway, enclosed walkway, built of stone. It must have, along touching the pyramid itself, it must have a funerary temple. At the end of this walkway, or causeway as it is called, it must have at the end of it a valley temple, because it must go down to water. It must go down to the Nile or canal coming off the Nile. Since there was only one major waterway coming in Egypt in the past, and it still is now, except 2 oases like the Fayum and Siwa. He then built a number of other buildings, false buildings, that when you open the door, behind the door are pits of 60 feet deep where you would fall in. So that you've come to steal, that would have been your prize. And there's a series of other things done by Imhotep with respect to that building. He built a complex for a school system. Way later, it is going to hear this called mystery system. None of the Africans call any of their education system a mystery system. A mystery system was introduced by the Greeks and the Romans when they arrived. It was mysterious to them, not to the Africans who were doing it. Imhotep was known as the world's first multi-genius. He was the Grand Vizier, he was Prime Minister, the priest, architect, builder, and so on, including a poet. He is the one that gives us the Caribbean song, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die." Not may die, you die. Imhotep was such a man that way later, when the Greeks and Romans would come, they would call him God Asclepius, the god of medicine. When, much later, thousands of years later, when Hippocrates is to write the Hippocratic Oath, he would write down the name Asclepius as the god of medicine. We can now move fast, because I have set the base upon which the movement of this society took place. Egypt is going to leave all the rest of the African societies way behind, because when Egypt make the move into working in stone, when Egypt established a school system, the others did not follow the lead. Therefore, young Egypt, the youngest of the nations on the Nile, the last nation on the Nile, is going to go ahead of all of the others in most of the things that they would do. So basically, I would be dealing with Egypt, because why have to run here and there and everywhere? This is the zenith of the entire high culture. High culture is the word that we use instead of civilization. They're no uncivilized people. People differ in what they do, in what they like. If people like people to eat people, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't like, but that is nothing wrong. You eat things that they don't like to eat either. So that's your taste, and they got another taste bud. If people have 4 wives instead of 1 wife, there's nothing wrong with that. That's their culture. I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to speak in the way that a so-called educator is supposed to speak, to deal with other people's culture as representative of other cultures, just to show the differences. Now, what took place in the education system, that they set up a school system in Egypt for training of the priests. The priests were the head of the system. For example, only 10% of all pharaohs, that's the word pharaoh means head of the great house. It was necessary to make a distinction between a pharaoh and a king, because up to the beginning of the dynastic period, they were called kings. After the dynastic period started, they learned to make a distinction, and thus they would call them pharaohs. And it means the head of the great house. By the way, the great house was called Memnefa, the White House. Actually, the White House. And do you know what were the colors of the flag? Red, white, and blue. Yeah, still come to Egypt now, you will see it. I'll show you all over these kinds of colors. I'll show you how they were used. And the black and green was used for state funerals. red, black, and green. However, this went on, and the priests became, in fact, upon whom the society rests. Because many pharaohs, most of the pharaohs, only 10 to 15% of them knew to read and write. It was the priests, a handful of pharaohs, went into school where they were youngsters. Their father put them in there, and they left because their father died and they became the king or something like that. No women were in the mystery system, and we make no apologies about it. That was our system. The Africans had established for themselves along the Nile different methods of dealing with family life. Family life was prescribed. In other words, a man knew when he woke up in the morning what he's going to do when he come out of bed from till he go back to the bed. A woman knew what she would do. She knew what clothes she would wear. He knew what clothes he would wear. And there was never family argument about things to be done, because the society knew just what it is to be done. And that was never a problem. As you have now the man and the woman arguing who's going to come home and cook the food, who's going to do this and things. We didn't have that. We knew who was going to cook the food. There was no question, because no man was going in with any man and no woman was going with any woman. And so we didn't have that. We didn't have prostitution, because they, like now, up to now, take for instance Egypt, you can't leave. If my mother was alive and I wasn't married, I could not leave the house and establish my own house. As long as my parents are alive, I got to live with my parents. Don't care how old I become. So that was the difference in the society, and that remained that way until the colonial system, in which the European powers captured us by fighting and took us over, and after that just run amok all over. You would think that we sent for Europe and tell them, come, we're waiting to be slaves, and then they came and take us out, and we were slaves picking off of a tree. We were independent Africans who had lost wars. And first we lost the war to the to the Arab Muslims, and it was 700 years later that the Europeans entered that field. So let's tell the whole thing like it is. Because some of us are teaching about Islam is the religion of the Africans. Islam is the religion of the Arabs. Got nothing to do with being the religion of the Africans, because they took some of the principles of the Africans' work and adopted them. Don't make them Africans. So we got to say Islam is no more African than Judaism or Christianity. They're all three foreign groups. Even though one of them started in Africa. Christianity started in Alexandria with Pantius and Boetius. And unfortunately people speak about things and don't know it at all. Now, what makes the thing is the education system. Because it took 40 years. These men set up a system that took 40 years from age 7 until age 47 of education, and then they were able to go out in charge of different sections, and they were called priests. The reason it worked so efficiently is because the oldest member was the head of the priesthood. A man became a priest and remained a priest until the age of 70. The reason is 70 because most men around 70 start to show decay in the mental capacity. You call it senility. And so to avoid things, the man remained, but only certain jobs and certain responsibilities he had. And that was instituted there. But he had to be circumcised at the 7th birthday. There were no exception. Every man and along the ancient Nile, from Egypt all the way to Buganda, what is today Uganda, had to be circumcised no later than 7 years of age, and definitely for the system. The child was then carried to Saqqara, and in Saqqara was the first place that education system started, the person who founded it being Imhotep. What the system developed was medicine, mathematics, science, engineering, and what you would call today the 7 liberal arts. It's from this point that the African projected the building of pyramids as a use of the farmers. The farmers built pyramids every year. They worked on the pyramids because the 4 months of farming was all that he could farm. What happened when the flood came, the inundation period? He couldn't farm. So he went up on the highland. On the highland, the pyramids were built. The religious institutions were built. All of the major buildings of Egypt, and they even placed the tombs of the pharaohs on the highland. Nothing was built in the lowland because the flood would flood it, and they had flood as much as 7 feet high. When you put the measure down, up to today, we would have had the flood were it not for the New High Dam. With all of that done, they then built a total of 91 pyramids throughout Egypt, mostly in the area starting from Giza near Cairo. By the way, there's no pyramid in Cairo. Stop saying the pyramid in Cairo. There isn't one. You mean Giza, and that's on the west side of the Nile, across from Cairo, and the east side of the Nile. They built those pyramids, and each taking different dimension for the most part, and they run in an area of about 10 miles from one to the last one furthest away. And those pyramids, most of them are, with our 62 of them, you can still see. The others have been totally destroyed by the incoming Arabs and the Christians. They use these pyramids and other structures, a kind of a ready-made place for getting stone. They would cut down. When Sudat was there, Sudat finally, for the sake of tourism and money for the cabinet, for the treasury, he issued an order barring everybody from taking away the stones from any of the shrines. So now it's illegal, punishable by long term to remove anything from any of the shrines. Thus, it became, because the Arabs who run the country, their religion is Islam. It's 60% of the 80% of the population of Egypt today are Muslim, including the indigenous people who they met there and became members of Islam. 20% of the population are Christian, the majority being Coptic Christians, and the rest of the people are of different religion, and a handful of people still worship the old worship of Amun and Amun-Ra. The people built, mummified the high people in different degrees. From the king, the first mummification was done, and it took 75 days to mummify a pharaoh. When a pharaoh died, the first day he died, he is then washed, take a bath, he is given the oral opening of the mouth, and certain other rituals which I am not privy to tell you, that it goes through. And it takes 75 days. But let us take, for example, the pyramid of Khufu, which you call the Great Pyramid. That is the largest of all of them. By the way, there are 42 pyramids in Sudan. And they are still existing. They're prettier, but generally smaller. But the pharaoh is washed and he's prepared. But the pyramid of the Great Pyramid took 20 years to build. And the Great Pyramid was built in 2800 BC. Abraham, the first Jew, isn't born until about 1700 BC. If you're not born, you can't build anything. There isn't any record at all anywhere in all of Egypt, You would have seen, because in every pyramid, in every temple that exists, every pharaoh placed his history, everything he did, the battles he won, the battles he lost, everything is there. Ramesses II even placed when he had a pimple on his face. Everything is there, and nothing, there is not a single statement, and it would have been possible for Egypt to have had slavery for 400 years and none of the exhaustive writing indicate a word about slavery or a picture about slavery. There is pictures of everything. There is picture there of the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth. Thank you. There's a picture of the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth in a place called Abydos, the Holy Land. Abydos was called a holy land before Abraham was born. Therefore, how could the Jews make a holy land in Israel, and there's no Israel? Abydos is still there. When you go to Egypt, you can go there. You will see in one of the rooms in there, Isis, which you call Isis, her name is Aset. Horus, which you call Horus, his name is Heru. Asharu, which you call Horus, Osiris. You would see the bird sitting on the penis of Asharu, receiving the holy sperm for the bird, Isis, Aset, to become pregnant by the Immaculate Conception. Your book, Matthew, speak of a version of that, a copy, a plagiarized copy. Let's tell it like it is. All right. Talking about that when Joseph was coming through, he stopped and saw this woman, Mary. He betrothed her, came engaged, had to go and come back in 3 months, and she's well with child. And he asked, what happened? And Someone said the woman is with child. He said, thou art what? A whore. And he went home, and an angel of the Lord came by night and said, think not ill of the man, of the woman, for what she has in her is not of man, but of the Lord. But 4,000 years before that, the Lord had done it already. Isis became pregnant by immaculate conception, and you will see all the scene in the stone, dug into the stone, painted in the stone, and you see the first resurrection had nothing to do with anybody dying. And the first resurrection was the story of Osiris. Osiris was killed by his brother Set, cut into 14 pieces. The 14 pieces were thrown symbolically around the world. One piece was thrown in the Nile, which was eaten by the Nile catfish. That's why I don't eat catfish. And Nubians don't eat catfish up to today, because the catfish ate Osiris' penis. And then they were not paid this to make any children. Osiris, the good god, was murdered, and the story goes that his wife took the different gods, Tahuti and others, and they went and found the body, piece of the body, put it back together, but there's no penis. So she had to go to God Ra, spoke to God Ra, gave him the penis, but the penis was dead. He was dead. And so with all the magic, of religion, the penis come back, which he had to hold up. When you go there, you see it. He held up the penis, he started it, and the baby came, and no more babies between the two of them. And you will see the whole scene. You wouldn't believe it, as natural as you could see. Including, you will see how the early Christians and Muslims, how they chop places out of the world. There may be people in here who have gone to Egypt by themselves, with other people or with me, and could tell you about these scenes. That started a major course in Egypt. Along with the young men, what was important that made Egypt important is that they went around the nation looking for young men to become priests. It was not the sons of the wealthy or anything, it was the sons of the people. If the priest saw this young man and he looked agile, he looked like he can do, he was conscripted, and of course the mother was going to complain because that was a great thing, and the son will become in 40 years. He stood there for 40 years, never going back in this system, and it was called a Grand Lodge. The first Grand Lodge was in Saqqara. The second Grand Lodge and last Grand Lodge was up in Waset. Waset name was changed. It was changed when the Greeks came in and finally eventually conquered the Egyptians, and they changed it to Thebes or Thebes. After they went out and the Arabs came, they changed it to the name now, Luxor, the city of windows. But what you've got is what got people in their problem today is the looks of the Egyptian today. If I came in here, you would expect me to expect that all of you would look like charcoal. But I know better, I'm not foolish. It's like the rumors people put out on me. They couldn't bribe me. I'm not bribable. I worked for the UN, and I turned on what was in 1940 and 50, I had 40,000 a year was a big salary. I turned that down because I didn't like the way they were treating my people. I'm not bribable, not for that, not money. Probably you could bribe me with a woman or something else, but I didn't. Because I'm normal. I don't hide that. But what you have to understand is that the ancient Egyptian people, the priests in particular, at one time at least, were not susceptible to bribes. The people were guaranteed. They didn't get paid for their job. They went into community and the people supported them, gave them whatever they needed to live on. And these priests developed the society as best they could. But when they brought into act mathematics and different science and started to build what other nations did not have, even nations within Africa right there along the Nile, Egypt went way beyond. But when the Egyptians, as I said, started to build, and particularly the stelas, when they built the first obelisk, the obelisk was built because Isis demanded that a symbol be built in memory of her husband's penis. And let me stop here and make this statement to you. There is no indecent word in the ancient language. And we in Africa refer to the sexual organs like we refer to your hand or something. I could refer to my woman's vagina as a hello. And if I said, if I were to ask her, did you wash your vagina this morning? I asked her, well, you wash your vagina this morning? And there's nothing wrong with that. My woman comes and feed her child, take her breast out with everybody here in the house and feed the child. The breast is an instrument to feed. We don't go for pablum and no nonsense like that. We feed the child and don't have to cover it with a piece of tablecloth big as and smother the child. We feed. You see, we are not civilized. The Europeans didn't civilize us yet, and we don't want to be civilized. We don't have prostitution because the one where were the prostitute going to get the John? The woman had to live home. Either with her husband. If her husband died, she had to go back to her mother or her oldest son or what. You could. There were no single people. So you got to understand, up to now, the majority of us does that. But there's prostitution now in the big cities. When they said prostitution is the oldest profession in the world, where? Not in Africa. It might have been anywhere else. You can take where else you want, but you got to prove it to me. But that in Africa it was. Now, when you see this development, they are developed mathematics, developed in the time of Hatshepsut, that will bring us to 1480 before the Common Era. Planned Parenthood, Hatshepsut, the daughter of Thutmose the first, had her scientists, her doctors develop a suppository to insert in her vagina to stop her from becoming pregnant because she had 4 children and decided it was causing her problem, and she had to be able to have sex and not get pregnant. They developed what is called the Ebers papyrus. It is a method, it looked like a Ludin scarf drop, and that they take the chemicals, put this base, and she could insert it in her vagina before pregnancy. About an hour it melts and it performs a base cover for not practice. Right now Monsanto and others took it and developed what is called for the diaphragm, which they use to cover the diaphragm so that any spillage don't enter the vagina. That is going back to 1480. There was not a single European state yet, no Greece, because we don't have the state, the creation and the mythology about how Rome came about, but Remus and all that kind of stuff, and the wolf and taking care of this little boy. I mean, but let's go on. And that was not until before 1000 BC. And all of this is going on, you understand. All of the building, you should go and see the largest temple in the world. They built the largest temple, and that was done by the father of Ramesses II. His name was Sataiwan. Sataiwan died in 1298, the 19th dynasty. He built the beginning of what turned out to be the biggest temple in all of the world. You can take St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, St. John the Divine, the one in England, and the Vatican. Take them all together, put them side by side, and this will put them in this temple. You know, go and see for yourself. And then go back to Greece and go to Rome and see where they copy this. See where they copy the temple by Hatshepsut, the funerary temple by Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari. See where the Colosseum they're trying to make something like here at Karnak. That's the big temple I'm speaking about. All this done before they came into what is called civilization. And it must make a person like myself angry, and I am angry. I am not going to tell anybody that I take this lovingly and don't think about it. I am angry, pretty angry. But I don't take a gun to shoot nobody. Don't mean I wouldn't shoot somebody. But I haven't done it because I don't see the need for it. I can find my way out of the way. I have killed people before, and I killed them for the West. Don't forget, you know, I was born in Ethiopia, but I came to the West in 1926, 76 years old. I came to the West in 1926 with my father to work in Brazil when Selassie overthrew the Lezasu government and we couldn't go back. We went to my mother's home in Puerto Rico, from Brazil to Cuba to Puerto Rico. And there I grew up, so I know. And when the war came, Second World War, I was, Roosevelt sent me a letter like he sent all kind of people to come and fight for my country. I finally found I had a country. And I had to go fight for a country I had. And I don't have, because I said I don't want to be buried by the government. I want nobody to put no cloth over my tomb, my coffin if they didn't eat me and plane on far along over the sea. And think, I want nothing back. No bird, no nothing. Now, you understand that the rage in me is because none of this has been told to you. You haven't been told how they've developed the system with respect to what is called by the Greeks the what you come and you can't walk under a ladder, you can't do this. They tell you that a girl, if you got to believe if you're born in this month, you can't marry a man that's born in another month. It's got to be some other month. And you can't come out of your house unless you read this horoscope. That's pure nonsense. Marry any man you want that to you look good, to you works out, to you makes sense. And to hell with the horoscope. It's a racket. I know I get some people here mad. But then I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to lecture to you. You feel the way you want. But it's a rat race. It's a piece of garbage. If it works, go out there and show me. It's strange that you tell me what to do, but you don't do it. We have to understand that when this science, when the Arabs came through and they came into Egypt, pick up what the Egyptians had, continue west in northwest Africa, and they came to Morocco, what's then Mauritania, with the Moors, M-A-U-E-R-S, before they became M-O-H-R-S, and other names, M-O-R-O, depending if you went to Spain, the Moro. Before any of that, when they were just plain Africans, when Dahia, the queen there, the African queen, fought the Arabs for 13 long years because she couldn't give up the North African religion. The same religion that Augustine will come later. Same religion that Augustine and others, the three nobles of the Christian church, would come. That the Moors carried into Spain in 711 what they had learned at going into Spain with the other Africans that lead them, including Tariq, General Tariq. And they're led by Admir. None of this is in your textbooks any place in the United States. There is not a single school, not a single university teaching any of this. They don't even teach about Imhotep. And they still teach that Hippocrates is the father of medicine. And now there is no excuse at all. They know the facts. They knew it long before, but at least they know that others know. They know that you know. And they continue to teach it. But we have, as it says, someday will come. There is a tomorrow. And nobody could stop tomorrow. Even the preachers that tell you about hellfire and all of that can't stop. About that hellfire, like I talk about it, the ancient Egyptians had a little a spigot thing that they would put in the grave, and they call it hellfire. And it's a place that they used to put you to test you. It got nothing to do with people going there and staying forever and ever and ever. And then when you burn and you cook, there's something stick you to see if you cook enough, and then throw some non-cooking stuff at you, and you start to cook again. Pure damn nonsense. I mean, people mad with me for bringing their eye, opening their eye to see that hell is a bottomless place full of fire and brimstone. If it's bottomless, how the hell is full? How could it be full of fire and brimstone and it's got no bottom? But let me continue. With the development of Egypt in the various areas that they are, and you notice that most of 80% of the obelisks that was copied from the first one are now in the Vatican. They were taken out of Egypt. The one in New York, Central Park, the Masons brought it there, and they call it Cleopatra's Needle. It is the obelisk of Thutmose IV. It's written on it. There's one in London, the one in Paris, and many other states, but the vast majority is at the Vatican. And guess what happened? They now put a cross on each of them, as if Christianity had anything to do with this, and these are 4,100 years at least older than Christianity. You see, when we talk about the Africans, you assume that they're going to do something for you. But they're only going to do one thing for you: play another basketball game, get O.J. Simpson to run a thing. Well, look, by the way, since I said O.J. Simpson. No, I got to stop here. Because, you see, they couldn't fight me. And since I'm not purchasable, they got some little women here, I call them women for the want of another word, running around saying that I marry a white woman and live in France. Can you see me with a white girlfriend, much less a white? I talk to white people, and they talk to me. We are good friends, and that's the way it stopped. No, I have nothing against white people at all. But our cultures are different. Our values are different. And it stopped there. I don't even want a piece. No, I take some corned beef hash instead. I mean, you all may have a desire, but I don't even have a desire. I live in Puerto Rico for years. I lived in Puerto Rico 17 years with my mother down there and my father when I had to go from Brazil to Puerto Rico to live when the overthrow of Selassie, which Selassie overthrew Lesashu. What we African people have to understand, and I see on the TV young black men coming on TV and got 3 women pregnant on the TV. Not one is older than 18 years old. And they all think it's funny until this white man gets angry. I hope that he don't mistake me for one of them. But we have to understand life is not a joke. Life is stated to us what we have to do. And the reason I am so sure of what we have to do is the fact that I've done so much research in the past to know what we did and what has been denied. We not only did what I just told you about, but we could come more in more modern time. Who built the first university in all of Europe? The University of Salamanca was built by the African Moors. It still stands in Salamanca in Spain. When all of them came from England to study mathematics in Spain, it was in front of African teachers, Africans who took on a name such as Alfonso Niño and Pietro Alonso Niño. The Niño family, this African family, was in charge of all shipping, whether it was for military or for civilian shipping. That was the man that carried Cristobal Colon, which you call Christopher Columbus. Carried him out. He was in charge. He was the admiral in charge of the ships. And Salem, Columbus was in charge of the expedition and sailed not one ship. That's why the Spaniards put him in jail where he died. He was interested in gold and exporting Christianity. We have to look and examine. When the Africans were brought eventually to the west, to the island of Hispaniola, that island is now called Haiti and Santo Domingo. That was in 1485. What do you think happened until 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, or 1620? Where do you think the Africans were all this time? Just coming across the Atlantic till they reached America? Like hell. They went to the islands of the Caribbean, lived there. Many of them became professional down there also, like they were professional home. As a matter of fact, the men who were coming on the ship were going to holiday, vacation, to England. They were all professionals and one was a physician. When they were turned over here, because the boat had no food and things, and they were turned in for to get provisions, they were not made slaves. Isn't it strange they don't tell you that those first 13 were not made? They were not made indentured workers. They worked, but they weren't indentured. It's after that they saw their work that they also became indentured. And now we're talking about the British system. There's still colonialism. It was not till years later that the British can fight themselves with one fool by the name of Adams. Slave fighting for his master. And nobody asked him. And got shot the right place, where he sits. You see, you got to think and go back into history to find what we did and why today, from 1620 to 1996, we are still coming and asking why. Why, you ask why? You know the answer. It is not because you're black. A lady told me the other day, they don't like us because we're black. I said, no, they don't like you because they're white, not because you're black. There's nothing wrong with me. Like the other day, one of my little grandson, because the children all grown up now and they're gone, one of my little grandsons came and he says, Granddaddy, Laurel is the black sheep of the family. I said, yes, son, and equal you too. He said, I said, the black sheep of the family. I said, yes, and you too. He said, but how could I be the black sheep? I said, you ever seen yourself lately? Look in the mirror. He said, well, Granddaddy, I don't understand. I said, son, if you weren't black, you wouldn't be in this family. And therefore you are a black sheep. But Granddaddy, black sheep are bad. I said, it depends on who said it. The black sheep is more precious. There are very few of those. And you happen to be a good one. You're lucky to be the privilege. You came from a black sheep. That's your mama and your grandmama and all of them and a line of grandfathers. You see, it is what you say about yourself. It is not what others say about you. You determine what you're going to be. No man set for me his agenda that I would follow. I have my agenda, and when he says something, I match it against my little dictionary. Does it fit? Sometimes I don't even tell him that's not right. I just ignore him. Because you must have, a man gave you an agenda. Edward Wilmot Blyden, born in the Danish Caribbeans, the Virgin Islands, came here to go to college, but he couldn't enter because they didn't have any room for people of his profession. It had already been taken. He wanted to be an anthropologist, and blacks were not getting degrees in Egyptology. No school was teaching a black to decide what race is. And so he left and went to Liberia and became eventually the president of the College of Liberia. Not only that, he's the man that wrote Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race. And he said in many of his books that the black woman is so special. There is no other woman in the world she has to follow to decide what is beauty. You may look at this and say, in the absence of this is racism. But I watch you perform in the 60s and so forth. You were fighting for integration. You are now integrated. I was looking at the heights of your integration the other day. A bus leaving the black community with all beautiful little black children going to the neighborhood, white neighborhood, to be integrated. And then I stood on the block waiting for a bus to bring white children going to the black neighborhood, and that bus never came. The bus up to now never come. What is wrong with you? Why do you have to be in a school with somebody else? I think the answer is in the quality of the textbooks. Yes, sir. Not in where it is. I went to school where there was 4 grades in one room. 4 grades and 1 teacher. And you know something? The teacher had no degree. Hello. And you should see all the degreed people, she and others like her, turn out. It wasn't that. It was, without a degree, she had something that people with a degree don't have. She let me know she hadn't lost 1 student. And I wasn't going to be the first, because it was going to be my ass before her brain. And she made sure that I knew. And there was nothing. She told my parents when they come by, I gave them a little shake up today. You should have seen my behind. It wasn't shaked up. I couldn't sit down. And then my father would give me an extra tuna when he got home for being rude. But that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. When I speak and wrote, by the way, I correct that. It is 44 books that I've published, and got a lot more there to come out. But when I sit down and write about the African people and what they were doing in ancient times, excuse me, some up to the modern times, I had to write about Weigel. I wrote about Apio. I wrote about the Saint Maurice of Aragon. Maurice of Aragon became the patron saint of Germany. You hear? The patron saint of Germany. He's the biggest educator ever seen there. From Nigeria, I wrote of men like Augustine. Augustine from Numidia, North Africa. Today, Numidia is called Tunisia. Augustine, who went there, his mother and his father tried their very best to have him join the new religion. It was known as the new religion until 212. Christianity wasn't called Christianity because nobody had any Christ. There was nobody called Christ. It's at 212 at the conference of no. It was the Antioch, the conference of Antioch, that they changed the leader to Jesus the Christ, Joshua Christos, the Greek name. Christ is not the name of a person. It's talking about a thing, it's a verb. The Christ, Jesus the Christ. You want me to make you Christ? Come here, bring me some asafoetida, and I will put a cross in your head, and you will be the Christ. You want me to anoint you? I will anoint you the God. Women used to do it all the time. The black woman that we take lightly, and I say lightly in some of our case, that some of us brutalize. I guess I'm 76 and I haven't hit a black woman yet. I got one for 45 years. I don't think it's that wife they're talking about. They must be talking about my cousin in Egypt. By the way, we marry cousin or our first cousin. Can't marry your aunt or your mother, your grandmother, but you can marry your first cousin. As a matter of fact, it's the preferred marriage. This is my fourth marriage. I buried the others. I got too sweet for them. They couldn't take it. They had to go on. But you have to understand, in seeing us, Gustavus Vassos, for example, Gustavus Vassos wrote 4 languages at the same time. He wrote about 10 books in which he wrote Portuguese, French, Latin, and so forth. When you turn one page, you got to turn 4 because it's 4 different languages. And he wrote those books. Never went to school any place. Not there. He had come from Ghana. And I could go on. Let's take about the Moors was so great that Shakespeare spent 10 works on the Moors. Shakespeare. And about, since I'm there, the other, I don't forget, because the Shakespeare talk about is one that you like, in that he comes from the same place that the King James Bible came from. And I know you can't do without that. Every dot, every T, every cross is the Word of God. And it's done by holy men of God. So Francis Bacon is a holy man of God. That guy went with more whores in London than anybody else. The 47 men who he picked out from Cambridge University, from Eton University, the different colleges in Scotland and England, to write using the book by Martin Luther. I don't mean Martin Luther King. Martin Luther, the one who was kicked out of the Roman Church by the Edict of Worms and started the Protestant religion. Over an argument between him and the Pope in Rome about money. Should they send 40% of what they collect to Rome or 60%? And when they said 60%, he said, like hell, I could preach like you could preach. And he left and started the church, the Protestant church, the Lutheran church, and then they started the Moravian church after that. But you know, you said these are the words of God. Where in the words of God? Using James? James had killed 3 women. Yes. And almost killed his mama in a big argument. If they didn't hold him, they'd kill her too. But no, none of this is used. And these are the principles upon which you stand. And you get scared when somebody speaks of it. You feel mad, and you're ready to hurt the person who lets you know. I'm not telling you believe me. I'm telling you go and get the documents. I'm telling you the name of the documents. And you go and get it. And where you could go and see the evidence. As I tell you anything major, I will tell you where you could go and say, because I've been there, I saw it myself. And I carry people umpteen years. From 1957 to now, every year, I take people to Sudan, to Ethiopia, Egypt, every year. Now I'm taking them like 3 trips a year. 1 in July, 2 in August, and 1 in December, January. The December, January is Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. But you have to go to see. You got to go to Aksum to see the kind of buildings that the ancient Ethiopians. Got to go there and see the temple built by Makeda, how it's broken down, but you can see the greatness of it. You must see for yourself. It is not enough to hear people write about this and you don't see it. That with me or with me, it doesn't matter. With some who have gone with me and don't doing their own trips. You go to see. It is better than to take the same amount of money, go in the Caribbean and just get drunk. You got nothing to do when you come back, get drunk, to take care of yourself and pay the doctor's bill. But when you go there, there's one thing what you see you will never forget. You will enjoy everything about it. And don't let anybody tell you, don't go over there, they're killing people. Damn, they're killing more people in Harlem. I don't know much about how the killing is down here, but I know it don't escape you. Because I see too much of you going out at night. Church are closing their door at night. The work of the Lord don't save the minister no more. He ain't going out to meet that 9mm. With all he tell you about the Bible, the Lord would save. That's one thing Jesus don't do, is save you from a 9mm. We got to talk about it. And the same thing go for Allah don't do it. I mean, when you going to grow up? A man went from Mecca, from Arabia to Mecca on a carpet. How did it take off? Where the motor? He passed gas and the thing went off? I have to be rational. And I ask myself the possibility of these things happening. I have to know it happened, not because somebody say it happened. And you have to do the same. But if you expect on this day to hear nothing but some people, the scores of a certain guy who went there, how fast he ran, how fast he danced, and so what the hell does it mean? Go see it, forget it. I hope you don't lose no money on it. You have to take for yourself and ask, why are these things happening to us? They're happening to us because the problem in most of these cases is money. And you say that money is bad. It's evil. What money doesn't even make itself. Somebody make money. Right. And if you don't have money, you're going to be sleeping in the street. So you need as much money as you can get. It is up to you what you're going to do with it. Don't run away from money. You need it badly. I could see. I come here and heard that I asked him about Pascal. Why am I going downtown? I want to go to Pascal. They said Pascal is closing up. Closing up? Why? This is the third hotel I've been coming to. I heard it's gone out of business by the time I come back. Why? Because you can go now and integrate and spend your money you don't spend with black people. You have got to learn that all people, all you see happening here, when you put a restaurant and put somebody and they find out that this is black in that particular area, unless they're going hunting some woman flesh in the night, you don't get your business last. But you break your neck to go into somebody else's business and to protest. Why you got to protest? There's no need to protest in the Korean or this, just don't go. And support one of your own when you come. So I'm saying that it's necessary to do all kinds of things to me, hoping that I will stop. It can't stop me. It's been too late. I understand that when I live in the Harlem community and when I came to the United States, first time I came here was I was going on my way to Spain in 1939. I knew then, and by the way, so that you don't get the wrong opinion about my family, nobody in my family was a king. I didn't come from king like all of you. All of you, my family come from kings and queens. You're lying. I mean, tell the truth. Your family came and you don't know where the hell they came from. And like I was saying, with the people who came, the salt of the earth, and some were in the royal family, no doubt. But by the time they come back, who knows? And they're dead and gone. But those honest people built when they came. And when you can see the result in Harlem, as the people came to the north, they worked in these Hebrew houses and things, and they buy little houses, and the Roman houses became theirs. And they became financially able to send their children to law school, medical school, and all these different things. And although their children had to work in Pennsylvania Railroad with doctors in their pocket and all kinds of things, they persevere. And today, their great-grandchildren are the scientists and the other things in the society. But one thing, we have to put our hand across the sea. Everybody else is doing it. When the Irish come here and becomes a president, Kennedy went back to Ireland. Nixon went back to Ireland and Germany. And others went back to the various places. They didn't forget that, and that's the highest title they could have in this land. But they didn't forget home. They went back. Instead of that, we are saying, I'm not black, look at me. Where you see the black? Where you see the white on them. It's strange that you find them to be white, but you don't find yourself to be black. Nobody's doing you, but you're doing it to yourself. There were times when it was done to you. It is not done to you like you saying anymore. Your grandma, great-grandma, yeah, they caught hell with the knives and the swords and everything. But now you are not catching the hell, you're only saying it. I'll tell you like it is. You may not like me for it, because I'm not coming and telling you I'm somebody. What the hell you a damn fool not to know you're somebody? Them kind of talk that Jesse give you and all kind of political talk, don't go with me. You need something other than that. That's right. Something dealing with reality. That you got to be in politics to do something. That's damn nonsense. That's right. You got to be in politics if you want some hard-working people to support you. You got to be in politics. And rip off a little bit out of the top. We need to own our own businesses. We need to respect our women. I was talking about that a few seconds. It is deplorable. The amount of sisters with busted eyes and busted jaws and busted mouth and kick in the belly and all kind of thing, pregnant, and done by black men. And then we want a black woman to love us under that condition. If you get a bunch of lions coming down the street and a sister coming down with 3 feet of snow on the ground with the lions running there, and one black man coming down with a car, the car is moving, she'd take a chance running with those lions. She got a chance of getting home, but she don't want to be raped. She don't want to abuse. You know, it sounds like hell. Oh, it looked like hell to go to the welfare department and look with the mothers without fathers. To go to the school graduation and you see nothing else but women. You're lucky if you see 2 men in the whole building. They may be just teachers. What happened? What kind of work did I have to do that's so important that my child is going to graduate today, that I am not going to be in that graduation building seeing my child graduated? It's not good to jump up to marching all over to Washington, D.C., flying. 1,000 march. 1,000 men marching. For what the hell you march? Tell me. You march now. And what you doing? Where is the money? Who got the money? What you doing with it? What are you building with the money? I went to atone. Atone for what? They know you. Everybody know you. You all know you. And know that all they have to do is tell you something sweet. And there you gone. You do it. Home brother told me, I wasn't here with the march. I was in Egypt at home. And I had just finished thing, and I came, and the brother said, Brother Ben, you been to the march? I said, which march? He said, Washington March. I said, no, I wasn't here. He says, man, you miss a good thing. I said, what they give out? He said, they didn't give nothing, brother. I said, what you had to give? He said, all the asked is for $1. I said, you walked there? No, man, we took the bus. How much you paid? I said, no, you paid at least 40 plus 1, $41. Did you eat? Yeah, I eat food. Say, okay, that's $50 and so forth. So $50. Now, if you had given that to one girl in Harlem, just give her $50. Say, I like you and everything. She'd have been looking for you for months to thank you for the $50. Now you went all the way over there for $50. Nobody give a damn if you came, don't know your name and nothing, but you spent $50. And you feel good minus $50. What is it did for you? You have no accounting of who took the money, what they're going to do with it, but you feel good. I didn't say nothing bad with it yet. I just said what happened. I just said, what are they going to do with it? Why didn't you find out from them? What is the plan? Do we plan to build a building, open a supermarket? What? Nothing. We didn't ask. Don't even know the address or the telephone number. No, I just got to ask us, what are we doing to ourselves? And if I ask the question, then somebody says, you ain't fair, you this, you that. But I'm asking some reasonable question because I want to know what happened to my money. You see, I had 20 children to send to school. A man told me, man, it's hard to raise children. I raised 20 children. I got one messed up. My oldest son, he's a drug addict, but he got a master's degree with the drugs. At least if he come good, he could do something. Sometime he did something. I was trying to beat somebody out or something. But that is what I am talking about in this lecture. And I'm going to start winding down. I know I'm being a little exasperating for your question and answer period. But tonight I took the course I took to show some basic understanding. But I needed to deal with those things because to me, the things that have us mostly down on the ground and we can't get up are those things I dealt with. And the worst one is our attitude towards religion. We will give up, take the Lord, but give me Jesus. Put your big pocketbook with every dime you own. Right down on the table, close your eye. Lord Jesus, I ain't want nothing but Jesus. Turn around and your pocketbook gone. And then you start to raise hell. Police! Police! What the hell you need the police for? You got Jesus. You done said take the world and give me Jesus, so the guy took your pocketbook. You don't need it. Now I know that don't make sense to you, but you just did it. And you do all kinds of things like that. You got something wrong with you, and a physician is a specialist in the area. He's speaking with you. You leave him, go to the minister. You go for a storefront minister. Can't help himself. And he going to tell you what the Lord said. Where we cite in the book? Revelation. Revelation was written by Athanasius at the Nicene Conference because they couldn't find it. And he said, I know, I remember every word. The man said, how are you going to remember? He said, I remember what he went, sat down 2 nights and rewrote Revelation. Then you're going to tell me this means Germany, this means Russia, this means United. They want no United States. They want no Russia there. How the hell he knows it means them thing? 3 men walking and this and all that's craziness. But you want it. If you ask me, somebody asked me, are you an atheist? No. Things that happen in the world. Are you religious? Yeah. You go to church, synagogue, mosque? No. You got money to waste. Well, are you religious? I'm religious with my woman. I religiously pay the rent. I religiously buy her underwear, buy her top clothes, buy all these things, so that I can be happy. When I walk in the room, she got my food prepared, never late. She run my water and everything like that, and I have her for 45 years. I paid $2 for the license. I still got $2 out that license to collect. And well, it's hard to say. It ain't hard because I didn't go there expecting romance. You see, you marry for love. I married for business. You understand? If I gave her all these things, she will love me. If she didn't in the beginning, she learned. You understand? She learned to love me. I treat her good. You bop her in the head, you don't give no money and you taking money. Then you knock her down. How's she gonna love you? She poison you in a minute. Put some hot grits around your face. No, I deal with reality in order to understand, but you don't want this. You want somebody to come and tell you, look at me, I'm General somebody from Schwarzkopf or something else. That don't mean a damn thing. You got a job killing people. But my brothers and my sisters, know yourself. When you go to Egypt, there's a big sign, and the tallest building, man, know yourself. And not thyself, that's English. So know yourself, that others may know you. When you know yourself, you carry yourself in a particular way, and others see you and must respect you in that way. And I say, I've asked myself constantly, how can I move forward? And what is forward? You cannot move forward if you haven't decided what is forward. What are the attributes I need to lead my family? What it is that I can, even the drug addict, and all of my children, I could come to them any day and say, good day. Hi, Daddy. Nobody can call me by my first name. As a matter of fact, I only got one name, Josef. We have no family name. That's this German custom. But they know that never can they call me by my first name. And I am no friend of my children. I'm their father. And they are my children. I'm friend of outsiders, not my children. I'm their father. Never let us mix up the role. You know what I am, you behave as such. I know what you are, I behave as such. And that is it. We want to be everything. If they make the dresses short that they send your guts out the door, we want a short dress. We don't say that dress don't fit me and I don't look appropriate. I am a black woman and I'm going to be a black woman. And black men going to respect me. Black children going to respect me. Black women going to respect me. I don't do it because it is the style. I do it because it's appropriate for me. And these are the things we've got to do. So my brothers and my sisters, I'm opening myself. It doesn't have to do what I say, because I might have give a different lecture, but I give this lecture because going to Grand Rapids and all over the country and just looking at young brothers and sisters, the argument hasn't changed. They're still saying the same thing on the campus. So I said, what happened? Why can't we go beyond this step? And I come down to knowledge of self. We are not happy because we can't be happy because we don't know we. As soon as we know us, hell gonna bust loose. I thank you. Yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah, Dr. Ben, I heard you give mention at the beginning of the lecture. You don't go into detail on it?
What?
I'm not sure whether you advocate or you're against study of Atlantis. I didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
I don't advocate nothing. There's nothing to do about it. Atlantis doesn't exist.
Oh, it doesn't?
Plato goes to Egypt to study. He goes back to Greece. He said when he was in Greece, the Egyptian told him about a place named Atlantis. That's it. Now what can you write about that? Now if you were a writer and you heard him, what would you write about Atlantis? Do you have enough to write about it? I asked you.
I thought you were the man to answer that question.
No, I asked you. You are a grown man, responsible, and that's all the information you got about a place named Atlantis. You don't know where it is, where the place is, when it started, when it sunk, when whatever happened to it. Now can you write about the people there, about the submarines and all this kind of nonsense? You can't write a damn thing because you don't know a damn thing. You don't know where it is up to now.
take this question away.
Thank you. I have a question about Joel Augustus Rogers, who was a historian around the same time as you.
I know him very well.
Yes, I had read that he was not well respected by some of the degreed historians. Did you know him personally? What can you tell us?
I know him personally, and I remember when he was a very close friend, his mom, senior. And Roger, and one time we dealt with it. Jamaica. And he had a sister was living in Philadelphia. The mother came and she went to the sister and make herself known. The sister was married to a rich white man. The sister said to the mother, "I don't know you." The mother said, "You've got to be my child. Let me tell you about yourself." And she started to give her personal markings and different things that she had. She denied the mother. The mother left there and never been the same. And I don't know whose son it was, because the reality of a Jesus doesn't exist. If you're talking about the historical Jesus, then it doesn't exist, because this isn't he isn't the first person that was called Jesus or similar. Osiris, 4,000 years before him, had a son named Horus, and Mary. That is called, there are 138 names for Jesus. There's 138 names for Heru or Horus. You mean to tell me it's a coincidence that they got the same amount of names and the same thing? Jesus moved a stone from his tomb. Heru moved a wall. The Herculaneum worship of Isis went from Egypt to Greece. From Greece it went to Rome as the worship of Marianne, which became Mary. Pick your choice.
Okay. I will add another one on this one. I also read that his divinity was decided by a vote, like 81 to 2.
Yes, a lot of things were decided at the. There's a book by Levy, the Aquarian Gospel. Read that. When Jesus killed 3 boys, went behind the wall with women, bush. I mean, he was a man. Read the Gospels that they don't want the public to know. What a guy named Saul of Tarsus, who was called Paul, didn't write all the Gospels. There were 100 more. It depends on which Bible you want to read. There are umpteen Bibles. James is only 60. But James' Bible was published in 1611. 1611. There were 5 Bibles in England at the same time. The only thing unique about it is the only one that was made in England up to that time. That's the only thing unique about it.
Greetings, Dr. Van.
Good, yes, sir.
I'd like to thank you for your lecture today, for being a student on the craft.
What's your name? Oh, yeah.
When I taught it to him, I taught it that since it is like what Garvey said, since it is that the European doesn't want us, and that you see that there are hundreds of Europeans coming here now. Let's take Miami as an example. Blacks used to control all the hotels and different things, work, porters and everything. Now they don't have a job. They got to go miles out to get a job. Take wax. blacks used to own watch. You could hardly find a black man watch now. They don't control anything there. And they don't travel outside. Why? Because other people come and work as one. They work together, they buy in each other's store, they marry each other's children. That's what we need. Plus, they don't forget home. There is a constant communication with back home. Most of the Irish and the Germans and the Dutch and things are Americans here, but they got communication with back home.
So you're saying that we should reach and secure or try to get connections or connect with brothers and sisters in the continent, more or less, is what you're saying?
Straight your back. You don't want your back to be exposed. Cover it. Have something behind the cover in your back. And when you turn around, you got security as well. You see me? I got right now a return ticket in my pocket. It got an open date. It's going to Egypt and Ethiopia. I keep one all the time. The day I'm going back is the day I get on the plane. You understand? I can always go. I always make sure that money, I can't spend it. I got a ticket. And if I don't use it in a year, which I don't use at least 4 times a year, but I can always go and get on a plane and go home. What happened is that we cut ourselves loose. And then another thing, we continue to talk the big lie. Our brothers and sisters sold us into slavery. Damn nonsense. Go down the history. When did the Africans send a letter to the Europeans saying come in slavery? Or send a letter to the Arabs come in slavery? Africa was invaded by the Arabs first. 700 years later, the Arabs made it possible for the Europeans to come in and equally invade, equally take Africans. It was not until the 18th century that the funds of the army, having nowhere else to go, started to help others enslaving Africans. It was 400 years of enslavement before one African started to help in the enslavement of his brother and sister. And he couldn't do anything else. The whole place was slave. You ask the person, name you the state or the king that started or were involved in the slave trade before 1800. And he said, it got to be one. Can't tell you name, can't tell you.
Peace, Dr. Ben. I heard you make a lot of reference to the pyramids and saying that some of the things that are in the Bible, such as Jesus' birth, the resurrection, the crucifixion, were written down on the tablets on the pyramids before the Bible was written.
Not in the pyramids, not Jesus. I said.
But the Jesus stories.
Go to the temple of Set 1 at Abydos, and you will see that not only written down, you see the entire picture story along with the writing.
And this was before, about 4,000 years before.
4,000 years before Jesus.
Okay, if there was no Christianity, no Hebrew, Judaism, and no Islam before this time, during this time, 4,000 years before Jesus, what was there an organized religion? What was the name of it? Or what was the pyramids used for as far as a spirituality, a moral code?
Pyramid was used to bury the pharaoh.
That's
it.
No temple initiation or anything else.
The pyramids was used to build the pharaoh. The longest one is the one for Khufu, and that took 20 years. And all they did 75 days when he died. They wash him, and within 75 days, they put him in there, seal it, and that's it.
Okay. What were the hieroglyphics of the, like when you were explaining about Isis and I think it was Osiris broken up into 14 pieces. Was that a part of their religious belief, or was it some type of...
In Egypt, there were different religions, and you could be any one. They didn't have a prescribed religion that if you do it, and people gonna mistreat you and think no such thing. You could, they had, I told you, they had 42 nomes, and they had 42 trinities. See, the concept of trinity is nothing new. So you could worship either one, or one god or goddess. By the way, they had goddesses, and every god had a goddess. Every goddess had a god. Every one of the gods had sex, and the goddesses. Nothing wrong with sex.
Right. Okay, so there wasn't just one centralized religion in Egypt, it was just...
There were different religions, different times. Different religions saying different things. Now, you got Islam with the dominant one because of pressure, and you got Christianity, the second one. Each of them preach, if you don't join, you're going to catch hell, or you're going to do this, you're going to do that, warning you to some problem will happen to you. But you got the old religion with people in them. Nobody tell you that if you don't join, this will happen to you. They just say, join. Please join us. If you join, then join. Then you got to want more.
Thank you.
Dr. Ben, I was just wondering, you spoke earlier about the different presidents returning to their home country and visiting it, saying they're back home. As African Americans, or as an African American male, I find the problem of looking on the map and seeing this great continent, Africa, and saying, where do I go? Who do I ask? Because that we don't have any, direct ties to Africa. My family is traced back as far as they can, and it just stops. What do I do as a black man and say, okay, I want to go get my roots. I want to identify with Africans, because when I meet Africans, they don't identify with me as a person. They say, yeah, we have the same skin tone and might have gone through some of the same circumstances, but they don't feel the same attachment to me. So I was just trying to figure out how I can better identify with my brothers and sisters in Africa.
If you move from block A to block B, you walk in and everybody in block B says, "Hi, come, I was waiting on you." Huh? No. Do you have to build a relationship with everybody else in block B?
No, but I'm just saying.
I just asked you.
No, but if, like the president say, I'm German, I'm going back to Germany. I am going to eventually come to what, but I asked you a question for a specific reason. If you move from block A to block B, you got to build up a relationship in block B, right? Right. Now, until you build that relationship and the people accept you, you're going to have a difficulty being accepted, true? Right. Well, when you go from here to Nigeria, you go from here to Ethiopia, you go to Greece, to Egypt, nobody's going to accept you the day you arrive. You're going to have to go through an acquaintance period, build up a relationship. Your cousin, I go home to Ethiopia, and there was one time I was out of Ethiopia from 1924 to 1974. It was a Salassi. When I went back, my father's baby brother didn't want me in his house. I had to build up a relationship with him. That was all of it. My father has 61 brothers and sisters. He was the oldest of 61. And the baby one didn't accept it. He told me, wait, don't go back. He thought that I came for a handout. And he didn't accept me. It's only now, recently, that you know something, my father's baby brother, I have not been in his house up to today. I have not been in his house up to this day. He has never invited me to his house. He comes to the hotel, he invites me to a restaurant, and so forth. And his daughters and sons have never invited me to their home. Other cousins have invited me to their home. And my father's brother put me through a ringer for identification, even personal thing that only I would know, or one of the child would know personally. And he satisfied that I am who I am. But remember, he has never known me. I'm older than him.
I left Ethiopia before he was born. And it helped to become a friend of his.
Greetings, Dr. Ben. Can you possibly elaborate on the purported Dead Sea Scrolls, the importance of these scrolls, if any?
No importance. The Jews have abandoned it. Anybody can get out. It's abandoned. It's nothing unique. They had it for years. They studied it and came up with nothing different than any other scroll.
Oh, okay, because I understood that parts of it was being suppressed and hidden. And
For what? What is in it that it was suppressed?
well, it would shoot down a lot of the various denominations that we have, you know, shoot homes.
It's a Bible that referred to the Bible. It referred to what Bibles refer, nothing else.
Okay, I was just wondering what was the mystique about it.
Nothing. It's a parchment of one of the parchments of the Hebrew Bible. And it got different little things that say it different, but nothing unique. If it were unique, you would have been going to see it because they'd have had it in a big showcase and they'd have had a big building and charged for it.
Greetings. Dr. Bay,
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you very much for the beautiful work you're doing for our people. But sometimes I am led to believe we're narrowly worth it.
When I was what?
We're narrowly worth it. Because you have to pardon me for my African diction. But let me say, sir.
I have the same problem.
Why is it that with people like you, Steve Coakley, Dawood, Dr. Khalid Mohammed, why is it that when you've lived your life,
I don't know only one person there, I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
The others.
well, he's one of the revolutionary fighters too. And I wanna know, why is it that when you have laid down your life for our cause, at the end we throw you to the wolves? The question,
That's common behavior of human beings, is that we're embarrassed by each other. When you come and point out, you've got to get rid of the person that did the things and point the things that you should be doing. So that's nothing wrong with the people. It's just one of the behaviors.
oh, okay, I already asked Dr. Clark about this. I just want to see how you react to this.
I'll give you an example. Asa teaches at this school, I think. I've been able 6 times to this school.
Yes, sir.
Some of the times I notify Asa personally. He'd come up to lecture or see him. We sometimes run into each other in Egypt. Asa have never showed his presence. But I'd come down, I went to San Francisco to fight for Asa when he was fighting the Japanese fellow. That's the way people are. People got certain things in their life that they feel they can't risk because of what you are. When, as I said, my father was a barrister. You know what a barrister is?
Yes, sir.
And my mother was a midwife.
Yes.
That is what we call at least middle class. And my father was very angry with the fact that I gave up engineering. I gave up law to do what I'm doing. The other way I make more money, but I wasn't as comfortable as I am without money. I only needed one. I needed a woman who, when I didn't work, would be satisfied with what I can bring in. I always look for a job. But sometimes I've been fired a number of times from my mouth. And she didn't say, well, I got the fur coat out there, how the hell am I going to pay for it, and you get fired. She said, I'm going out to work. And she go out and work till I got another job. And she stopped and I continued. And so I could lose my mouth. And she was satisfied with it. Now we're both retired in a sense. I mean, I'm retired officially from Cornell, but I am not stopping. So it's a hard thing to explain. The freedom of the people is just one of the behaviors.
Oh, okay. I already asked Dr. Clark about this. I just want to see how you react to this.
I'll give you an example. Asa teaches at this school, I think. I've been able 6 times to the school.
Yes.
Some of the times I notify Asa personally. He'd come up to lecture or see him. We sometimes run into each other in Egypt. Asa have never shown his presence. But I've come down, I went to San Francisco to fight for Asa when he was fighting the Japanese fellow. That's the way people are. People got certain things in their life that they feel they can't risk because of what you are. When, as I said, my father was a barrister. You know what a barrister is?
Yes, sir.
And my mother was a midwife.
Yes.
That is what we call at least middle class. And my father was very angry with the fact that I gave up engineering, I gave up law to do what I'm doing. The other way I make more money, but I wasn't as comfortable as I am without money. I only needed one. I needed a woman who, when I didn't work, would be satisfied with what I can bring in. I always look for a job. But sometimes I've been fired a number of times from my mouth. And she didn't say, well, I got the fuck out there, how the hell am I going to pay for it, and you get fired. She said, I'm going out to work. And she go out and work till I got another job. Then she stopped and I continued. And so I could lose my mouth. And she was satisfied with it. Now we both retired in a sense. I mean, I'm retired officially from Cornell, but I am not stopping. So it's a hard thing to explain. The freedom of the voice. Some people cannot live under certain conditions. And the way we as a people have to live is the thing that motivates you.
Let me be very particular about what I'm saying, sir. I understand and I appreciate what you said. Does this justify why brother like Brother Khalid was being ostracized by the Nation of Islam after having lead of his life?
I don't know the full story. Brother Khalid and mine developed a good friendship when he was suspended. I do know Farrakhan, but I don't know him that closely, and I've avoided him because of the statement he had made against Malcolm, and Malcolm and myself were very close. And I avoid any relationship with Farrakhan because of his statement against Malcolm, which I heard personally out of his own mouth. You decide how you're going to live. And some of us decide that we're not going to do certain things because it's against our principles and our people. And we're going to do other things, but never that. It's like saying to me, I'll give you $1 million if you marry this white woman. You ain't got nobody. You got to get somebody else. Because you're killing me. You asked me to die. Because to me, that would kill me. That woman, just look at the woman, there's nothing wrong with her. I just not going to marry one. I would work in the office, but I'll do all that. But I'm not going to marry one. I'm not going to kiss her. I'm not going to put my body in her.
What I'm saying is, this is the last one. What I'm saying is, I understand punishment for whatever you've done wrong. Why should you punish somebody for doing the same thing that you do, for saying exactly what you said? I'm talking about Brother Khalid and Minister Farrakhan.
I have not punished Brother Khalid. We're still good friends. Now that he's gone back, but when he didn't have a place to go, I was one of the friends whose household put everything he found. Now I don't punish Farrakhan, I just don't deal with him. There's no punishment. I haven't said a thing bad about Farrakhan. I don't deal with it. What punishment is that? I have the right to deal with a man or not deal with a man if I so do. If you ask me to detail why, I just told you. He made some statement out of his mouth where I was there hearing it about Malcolm, about the death of Malcolm. And anybody makes such statement, I wouldn't have anything to do with. And that's the same thing with Farrakhan. Farrakhan could come here big as this house. I would walk through his foot, around him, above him, any way to get away from him. I don't want any dealing with the man.
After the sister right there, that's the last question we will take.
Yes, sir. Greetings again. I noticed that you was talking about how you came over to Brazil and Puerto Rico and then the United States around the 30s or so. And it sounded as though you came during the tenure of Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, and it sounds as though you were exiled. I don't know too much.
My father was forced and self-exiled. What happened when they overthrew the Jassu, the legal heir? He was on the throne. Selassie and the French and the British, when the Jassu tried to make peace among the people like it was under Menelik II, Abuna Johannes and Selassie, Abuna is the head of the Catholic Church, which is now the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
Right.
The Jassu start to marry a woman of every religion, because Ethiopia have always had a stupid fighting over religion. He decided when he got and married the Muslim woman, it was alright when he married a Hebrew woman. He married a Muslim woman and the Selassie and Abuna. Selassie was then regent. That's 1924. And those who worked with the Jassu was told to return to him, but he was stupid. He started killing the people before all got back. If he had waited, my father would go him home. But after he found them some killed, where he going home for? He went to Puerto Rico with his wife. My mother is a Puerto Rican. And he went to Puerto Rico by way of Cuba with his wife, where he lived until he died at 102.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Ben, one thing I do is I'm a writer for the Tuscaloosa Times newspaper. And my question is, I would like to know, in the area of interpersonal communication in the black family in America, in your research and in your travel, have you found that the interpersonal communication between the black mother and black son in America may be too bonding to the point that it may be crippling in other relationships?
I don't think a mother can overlove a child. It's impossible. Because I could say I'm obviously not a mother, but I am a father, and I consider myself a diligent one, and I can't love my children too much, but I establish guidelines. As I said, my son or my daughter can never be my best friend. My son is my son and my daughter is my daughter. Now, a mother, if you understand, let's take it a little time. She gets pregnant. When she gets pregnant, maybe she's sick or maybe not. From that day on, she is developing that child in her body. While you or me outside, I am not getting sick in the morning. I'm not tossing around the bed, can't sleep. There's a bonding going on between her and that child that I can never feel. The man will never feel. the day she gave birth to her first child, like most mothers, she's going through a pain syndrome that nothing can stop. She's going through it. The child is born. I'm going to grab the child. Come to daddy. Ain't got nothing of what she felt. And I don't want a child to love me like it loved her. No way. The bonding that she went through with her child, the experience with her and her child, the more she loved, the least she feels she loves us. And there's nothing to stop her from loving more. Let her go on and love her child. It doesn't deny her the aspect of setting guidelines. She loved that child, she's nothing praying out. You know what I said? That I give birth to you, I bring you, and I'll take you out. This she means at the moment. But who gonna be crying at the coffin? Who gonna be trying themselves in the grave? She can't love enough. She can't love enough. The problem is that she's got to make the division of when she stops and say, no, I love you all the time, but you got to respect me as your mother. This you gonna do. With all the love I got for you, I'll kill you rather than you do something else. She'll kill you and then cry for you. And I say, go on, Mom. Thank you.
Greetings, Dr. Ben. My question is in regards to, you had said that in the mysteries, quote-unquote mystery systems, it was just initiated to males. I'm wondering if any time there was an initiation system for females in African.
There was a priestess. There was a priestess organization which they set example for themselves. But I am in the craft, and I can't go to the priestesses organization. We have once a year conference that we meet in conference someplace. Because you know it's of God. The Egyptian government said we can come together and practice. But we know what happens each time there's something going bad, then they grab us. So 90% of us or more are not about brothers. We meet in our own way and we talk to each other. But that's about it, nothing else. We talk about certain things we don't talk. First, the woman initiation, we don't talk about it. Neither they talk about ours. Because there's a privacy that we don't talk about. There's certain little things that we know we don't touch, and they don't touch. There are things in this world that are women, and there are things in this world that are men. In my house, when my woman is going to menstruate, but she don't menstruate now. But when she was younger and menstruated, she told me we must, by our regulation, keep a definite chart. And she had to let me know in advance when that time is coming. So 3 days before that period, I don't speak to her about sexual matters. Never. She refrained to her room. I don't go in that room. I can't go in that room. My daughter or somebody else cooked the food for me, and somebody cooked for her. That's part of our tradition that we follow. She happens to be of the same, she's a Christian, and I don't interfere with her when she practices her Christianity. And we are together for 5 years. And I knew her before then, you know, I went to her to school. But it is a thing that I sometimes go to the church. She invites me to our church. And anybody here is playing music, or somebody is at the church swings sometime. And I go, and they have different things going there, and daughters and different things like that. And Father Lucas, I don't know if you ever heard of Father Lucas. And I go there. Sometimes I don't understand what he's saying, sometimes I understand, and different things like that. But we understand each other. And I understand, she's got a I think it's called sepulchre. And religious thing in the house, with her Jesus and everything like that, I don't disturb it. And I sometimes tell her, you're running late. How does he drop you off? I drop her off to her church. She believes so. Go ahead. You know, the thing is, I know it is a belief and nothing else. She knows it's more than that. We don't interfere with each other private things.
My last question is so related to the other question is that when Alexander the Barbarian came into Kemetic, and how much of the books that he stole or hidden from us, that, I mean, how many books, how many things about Kemet or Tamari are hidden that we don't know that some people may never have seen, or is that true, or all the books accounted for?
Well, I don't know if Alexander was a barbarian, but if you say so, you must have some justification for it. I don't know of him stealing one book. I think you got to mix up the persons and their role. Alexander, the son of Philip of Macedonia, I guess that's what you mean. Alexander, the son of Philip of Macedonia, was preoccupied with homosexuality. I mean, it's a known thing. Everybody knows that, not everybody, but it's known that Aristotle was engaged with homosexuality. A lot of them agreed. And other people who worked for him. He only stood in Egypt from, he came in 332 and he died in 327. You know the numbers are going down. When he died, General Sutter took over. But Sutter changed his name to Ptolemy. Ptolemy I. Married the daughter of the Starop. That's the Starop, is the head of the man from Persia, now called Iran. So Alexander died, he couldn't steal anything. But his the men behind him, Sutter and all of them, Aristotle, all of them, what they took, they destroyed the library at Waset, where you call Luxor, or Thebes. They took the books from there. They burned some, they took some personally, and they left a handful. The handful is still there up to now. People said that this was done, but they can't tell you one book. And a book was not like where you got here and open it like that. Scrolls. It's not books like you use. It's scrolls. And that is all we know about Alexander. As far as stealing, he fought. But Cato and him had tremendous arguments. That you remember he killed Cato by throwing a javelin in the back of Cato. But listen to this. When Cato was dying, this is the report from the document, he grabbed Cato in his legs, you know, that his back and his head and his leg. And what did they say that Cato said to him while dying? Fool you are, Alexander, but they said fool thou art, you know, Greeks they speak with thou art. Fool thou art, you have killed your own mother's child. In law school they tell us what? A dying declaration must be given attention. Because people are generally fear they're going to die, so they want to make things straight. What is that? They told us that Cato's mother was Alexander's nurse. They didn't tell us she was his mother. So then we find out what? That Cato and Alexander were brothers. They had the same African mother. But they said they had the same European father. Then what happened? You know, another thing. When you're talking about the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, do not use the same racism you use for the 18th century European scholars and the 19th century and the 20th coming up. They never claimed anything back then. It is the 18th century Europeans who claimed these things. You can't show it back to the 17th century. They did not make it. And to the contrary, the Greeks and others wrote in their works where they got these things from. They mentioned, for instance, Pythagoras. He spoke of the goblets, the silver, perfect silver goblet that he gave when he entered the schools of learning, and the fact that the pain he had to be operated on at 60 years of age, he had to get a circumcision because they didn't accept anybody in the system who was not operated because they said it was unclean. And they speak in glowing terms. Plato, who spent 15 years, spoke in glowing terms. All of the Greeks who came to Egypt to study, and some to Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia, all wrote in glowing terms about their teachers. It is the 18th century one who wanted to justify slavery, wanted to justify the stealing of colonialism. They then start to turn the table around. Now the table is turned, they're bringing in people from outer space to give it to. They prefer to see people from outer space than the Africans holding their own thing. So I don't think that we should pass venom on the ancients unless we have a specific preference. It is the modern European who has problem with the ancient works of the Africans. And ancient, because it was not Egypt alone that influenced Greece. The Babylonians had a lot of influence in